Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. So our topic for today is how to handle bullying when we are always online. So my name is Ali Urbano and I will be your moderator for this session. So let me just remind you that this session will be recorded. So before we start our fun and learning, let's just have a quick check-in. Could you please say hi and shout out what organization you're from using the chat box? Just click on the chat button below your screen and please make sure to send it to everyone and not just the panelists. Okay. So let's see who we have here. So I'm going to read some of the entries here. So good morning to the participants from FEU Alabang. Okay. We also have from participants from Cebu City, Cebu City University of San Jose. We have participants from the Quezon City District 5, from Central Escolar University, from University of the East Manila campus. We have SDO Santa Rosa Laguna. We have from Bulacan. All right. So it looks like we have a good turnout. So we have a very diverse pool of participants. So big welcome to all of you. So let me just give you a few reminders for this session. Okay, so here are the tools that you could use to communicate with us. You'll see both the chat and the Q&A buttons at the bottom of your screen. Please use the chat section if you need to send us any feedback during the webinar. And the Q&A section is when you send in your questions. You can post them anytime throughout the webinar, but in order to manage our limited time, they will be answered at the end. So basic questions will be answered via chat and the others will be answered live during the Q&A. So the raise hand option will not be needed. Kindly include the slide number in your questions so we can reply to them faster. We'll also use the upvote feature of Zoom. So if you have the same question, just click on the like button, and the questions with the most number of likes will be prioritized during the Q&A section or portion. You may also add more details to the question by using the comment button. So from time to time, a polling question will be posted. A separate window will pop up to show the poll. So please answer the question using the window. Select your answer from the list and then just hit submit. The results of the poll will be shown after. So just click close when you're done viewing the results. At the end of the webinar, you will automatically be routed to a survey form. Kindly take time to answer the short survey. Your feedback is important to us and will help improve our succeeding webinars. Those who answer the survey will receive a certificate of attendance for the webinar via email 1 week after this session. Now, for those asking about access to the recording of the session, key takeaways, and succeeding webinar schedules, they will be announced in our Facebook pages. So that's at Trend Micro Careers Philippines and ClickWrite PH. So you can also send us a message if you want to request a topic you would want us to cover in our next webinar. So please like and follow our pages. So time for you to meet our speakers for today. We actually asked 2 speakers to join us because as a company, Trend Micro is strongly against any form of bullying, especially in the cyberspace. So our first speaker is Myla Pilao. She's our technical marketing director for Trend Micro. Myla heads the division at Trend Micro that monitors the security threat landscape, including high-profile attacks and prevalent internet security threats. Prior to this role, she was director for technical support, where she managed a team of technical experts who handled escalations and enterprise customer cases from across the globe. Myla is also an active supporter and advocate on the protection of children online and international movements of stopping the online commercial distribution of inappropriate images of children. She holds an MBA from the National University in Singapore. So Myla is one of the best speaker for this topic. Our next speaker is Carlo Antonio Hao, who is also fondly called Carlito. He is the social media manager in Trend Micro. Carlito is in charge of the social strategy and insight for the Philippine market of Trend Micro and oversee the social strategy and content management of Trend Micro Research. He leads the production of social content plans that are anchored in best practices and up-to-date platform products. Before Trend Micro, he worked at McCann World Group Philippines, a leading agency in PH, as the social management director and experienced social design director. His work entailed providing support and ideas to the business leaders in developing digital and social media design solutions for the brands of clients. He handled brands from FMCG to non-government organizations. So Myla will cover the first part of the session, followed by Carlito. So Myla, I'm turning over the presentation to you. You could go ahead and share your deck. I will stop sharing my slide.
All right. Good morning. Magandang umaga po. Thank you. And this is a very interesting conversation. And I must say that as a first waiver, we are not expert. We're not graduates of psychology. Neither we have somehow specialized in the field of really looking into the psychology of children, right? But where we're coming from as vanguards for security is to be able to help really cut down what we call one of the biggest issue right now, which is the protection of children, which we all advocate online and offline. So that's where we're coming from. So before we do this, let me start sharing my slides to everyone. I know that this is not our first program on education and learning, and I really want to applaud everyone who have been joining us from day one to this session. We really applaud you because I always say there is so much time that you can do today. You have many choices. You can sit down and relax. You can chill out a little bit, do your home stuff, but you chose to be part of this learning session. And for that, from Trend Micro family, we truly applaud your ability to keep learning and protecting our children, which is obviously our next generation. And before we do that, I know that Alu will help me out here. I am very, very curious in terms of how many of you have actually been in many of our other sessions, because we've done a couple of sessions on social media. We've done a couple of sessions on online community learning. So the poll is actually on the front of your screen right now. And I just want to get a good feel. How many of you have actually attended this, or is this your first time joining our learning session to aid our youth and future digital education? Let's get all the answers in, and let's wait for a few seconds. This will be interesting. Okay, so I see that 6 out of 10, this is your first time. And it's my hope that it is not your last, okay? And I think we have a very good mix also of what we call the returnees, tawag natin mga suki, okay? So I think a good, I would say 30% are people who have been joining us in this learning session. So maraming salamat po. So for this session, I think it is interesting to say that this is something that we've heard about. This is not the first time that you probably are attending a session on bullying, di ba? So let's take a look at it really on many different aspects. I think we can look at it on the Western side of it, but last night, I was requested to talk a little bit about this. So I said, saang anggulo ko kukunin ang cyberbullying? So I decided to look at it in the context of us, Filipinos. Why is it existing? Why is it really, where is it really coming from? And the most important thing is that, what can we do today? So bear with me, I'll spend about 20 minutes on this one, and let's talk a little bit about ano ba ang root cause ng cyberbullying, right? So I will just turn off my camera if you don't mind for the succeeding part of the session. So the question is, when I was looking at it on my point of view, I asked myself in terms of what is really bullying to me as an individual. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. Indulge me with this one. When I was, like many of us Filipinos, we carry a lot of names, right? We are so fond of name calling, and it's not bad. Name calling to us sometimes shows affection, sometimes shows endearment. So it is done really naturally. So let me tell you a little bit of a secret. When I was younger, I carry many names in my sleeves, okay? For my family, my immediate family, this is how they call me. They call me Pat, but warn you, Pat means patpatin. When I was kid, I really was so slim, and I wish I am like that, but it's not. So it sounds cute, but essentially it means something. With my high school friends and even with my college friends, they call me Lit. Again, it sounds pretty cute, right? But actually, what it means is liit na tao, right? And finally, when I entered the workforce, people call me through this, and I don't need to explain what through this is. People know what through this is. I think it was coming from a film. The point I'd like to make is that the question I ask myself is, did I really feel bad when people start calling me this name? My answer to it is no. I did not feel any negative emotion when people were calling me that way. As a matter of fact, I embraced it, right? The little me, the patpatin, right? So these are probably some areas that I can look into on where is it really coming from. The question I ask myself is, what if this kind of situation is happening in our digital age today? The question I have in my mind is, am I actually being bullied, or was I been bullied before just because people were calling me this so unconsciously, right? So the question I have is, was I bullied during this time, right? So in this context, I want to join you together. Let's ask ourselves really. There are four fundamental questions that I have in my mind. But before we do that, we have to really understand that the entire digital space that you and I are forced to revolve in has what we call the digital quotients. There are so many things that we have to navigate, right? For this conversation today, and I think in the conversations that you have been joining us, we really want to focus on digital citizenship, the proper way to use it, and how do we aid our children in the future to go through this ecosystem. For this session, we opted to really focus only on cyberbullying. And it's our hope that we could cover some of the items in the slides that you see today. So let's take a look at it really in the bullying side, right? So I have been working as a volunteer for United Nations Child Online Protection, and this is one of the most fantastic source of information or non-profit organizations who have been focusing really on the mental model of children when it comes to digital quotients. We have IQ, we've got EQ, and in this digital age, we have DQ, right? So these are somehow the issues that we are affront. So maybe Aru can help me with our next poll. I would kindly ask another question with regards to these issues. Aru? Thank you so much. So join me here. From the choices that you see from the poll, what do you think is the most concerning area as a parent, as an educator, a student, or even a digital citizen to you? Which do you regard as really the major issue that you're looking into? And we have a number of choices out there. I will give everyone a few seconds to really digest all of this. And as you can see, these are combinations of threats. These are combinations really of technology and even a portion of education. Cool. So I see that there is a clear resounding answer that really, as educators and as parents and adults, we feel very strongly that cyberbullying is number one. And I think number two is very close. A very close second is risky online content that may be in the form of images, text, or sadly, even in the form of video. So we will come back to this one. Thank you so much, Alu. So I'd like you to go back to this image, right? As human beings, when we are presented with this challenge, it is natural for us. When you take a look at the respondents, these are 3 regional respondents representing Asia, North America, and Europe. And this is a study of all the countries under United Nations. When this was asked in the same way that you were asked today, in terms of what are your concerns, please have a very close look. A lot of us, like them, are actually, the response are skewed to the left, my left on the screen. When you take a look at it very, very carefully, all of this are the problems, right? From content, from harming, from excessive use to reputation risks. As it is our human behavior most of the time that when we see things, we respond to the problem itself. But I want you to focus on the other side. The items on the other side, which is my right-hand side of the screen, you would see that these are actually a diverse number of solutions, meaning to say how to counter, how to address. But again, as human, it's our human nature that when we are asked, we always focus on the problem as opposed to focusing on the solution, right? So the point I'd like to make is that all of these things are very, very glaring to us. And I wonder, as Filipinos, in the context of our community, our circle, and we will come up with another survey or poll in the screen, I want you to take a look at the left side again, very, very closely. Amongst the issues that the children are facing today that presents the most problematic area to them, what do you think is the number one most challenging thing that they face today? Can we come up with that poll, please? Thank you. So I will read again. In the aspect of this use of internet as educators, where do you think our children, our youth in general, are having the most problem, or the one that stresses them out at the moment? And the answers will come up in a while. Let's take a look at it if this is representative of the behavior. And again, you can see this is quite interesting because I think it's intuitive without asking the question. I think it's intuitive that 6 out of 10 would really respond to cyberbullying. I think we made a good decision of doing this today. But you can see earlier, the question I asked to you earlier was, which areas do you think as a parent is really important? A lot of us answered cyberbullying, but a good number of us talked about technology, access to technology. The question I asked today is actually, ano yung problema where our kids are more faced off, right? So the answers to that are normally what you've said, the cyberbullying and excessive use of the technology. So if you're curious on where we are at, this is where the global youth, what we call the cyber pandemic is. Again, without really, it's intuitive that a greater majority of our children between this particular age bracket are really suffering from this particular area across the other factors that I've mentioned earlier. A close second, if you take a look at it, this is highly correlated. A close second to where the stressor for the children is really exposure to malicious content, whether in the form of sexual or violent content. They are strongly correlated, okay? So I think it is very pronounced to say that we are really facing what we call the cyber pandemic, because we have new generation every single day coming into this digital space, and 4 out of 10 are experiencing bullying, right? So just like you, maybe some of you would say, Myla, anong standing ng Philippines, right? What is the standing of Philippines when it comes to this particular area? And your guess is probably as good as mine, but let me show you a little bit of where we are at. I will share again my screen. Okay. So you are looking one country, and I purposely showed Singapore, which is about 3 hours for us, but in terms of a lot of the commonality, we have a lot of commonality. Please note that cyberbullying is actually on the area of cyber risk, okay? And there are many components in here. The risk that the people are facing. Do we have discipline in digital use? Our people, our youth are actually capable, empowered to be part of this new community, their competency. As parents and adults, do they have the right support group, which is guidance? And is the infrastructure ready in connectivity? Please note that, again, out of the many countries that were ranked, the lower the number means the better. So if higher doesn't mean good. A picture that you see to here is the data from Singapore. So which means that they're doing very well in terms of the overall DQ. Their only challenge is probably on the area of infrastructure, which comes as a surprise for us, knowing that they're probably one of the highest bandwidth. Let's look at our wonderful country, Philippines. This is where we are, and I hope it's showing up on screen right now. So you can see that it's a double digit across, except for one factor. So what does this mean to us? That our youth today, the youth of today, are actually not experiencing, but are suffering in all areas of the risk. They have less discipline. They are not yet competent to enter the market, not considering the infrastructure and connectivity. So this is why we are here today, because this is a 2020 data. When you compare it to the previous years, sadly, it's almost the same. But let me highlight one area where we are very, very strong across the globe. Join me as we zoom into guidance and education. That's number 5. 5 against 100 plus countries in the world. That means I want you to raise your right hand, pat yourself on the back and say, friends, we're doing a good job, because guidance and education means that they have the support group ready. They have people around them to coach them and to mentor them. So, and I think today's demonstration of the webinar and your attendance is a significant demonstration that we are really strong on the area of guidance and education. So we've got a lot to catch up, but that's not a big issue. So I will come back again and say, like you and me, when I was doing this, I asked myself, ano ba talaga yung cyberbullying, right? This word has been used very, very loosely. So the good thing is we have tremendous amount of resources on cyberbullying. There are so many experts in the field, so we will not really have scarcity of information. So the question is, ano ba talaga yung bullying? Borrowed from an official definition of this, bullying is a very distinctive pattern of repeatedly deliberate harming and humiliating behavior against others who are especially either weak, they're young, they're vulnerable, or they're isolated, which means they perceive to be stronger, less strong or weak than the bully, right? I have purposely highlighted the words that, again, are very important. I will go back to my assumption kanina. When people were calling me names, the Trudis, the Liit, and the Pat, is that bullying? Or it's just that being joyful? People are just very nosy. And I say it is not bullying. Kaya I highlighted the things that is really bullying, meaning to say there is a pattern. There is a repeated technique. It is nonstop. It's heavily repeated. Walang sawa. Deliberate means, sa ating word is that it is something that we really intend, right? Ito yung talagang minsan sagad sa buto. And most especially is that you will not prey on the strong opponent. These people would normally prey on what we call the weakest link, the individuals who show inferiority. That is bullying. When it is done on a pattern, non-stop, and they have a deliberate intention to harm someone, to the weakest member of our community, then that is bullying. However, Myla, ano ang difference ng bullying sa cyberbullying? Only 2 words. It has just moved from the school grounds, from an office location, into electronic way of aggression. And it was amplified very well because it now occurs on the digital space using the power of technology. Yun lang po ang diferensya. So this is happening to us. So let's ask ourselves, when I was putting these slides together, I asked myself some fundamental questions. Where does it actually stem from? Saan nanggagaling yung bullying? And mind you, when I talk about cyberbullying, I'm not referring it exclusively to children or youth. Tayong adults are also, most of the time, we do that. The question I also ask myself is, I hope this is also your question to your mind, is, are bullies, or what I call aggressors, are they really born or are they made, right? The third important factor is, tayong mga adults, what role do we play in this digital crisis? And the last one is, what do I do, right? So I will attempt to focus on that portion. And as I said, I'd like to take a look at it in the context of our values as Filipinos. Where is it really coming from? Let's talk a little bit about us as Filipinos. Tayong mga Filipinos are known for so many things, right? I will highlight a couple of items in here. Filipinos have a very strong sense of family and community. Kahit third cousin mo, kapitbahay mo, you relate to them as one big part of your family. We Filipinos are very friendly. We are very nosy. We are excessively talkative, right? We can talk for hours, regardless kung saan, sa telepono, sa bintana, sa sasakyan, right? We're very known to be like that. However, at a very young age, I know that you're nodding your heads right now, Filipinos were also trained what we call the hiya factor. There is no actual English translation of hiya, except for the Spanish word. I refuse to say it's shame because hiya is, it is a respectful way of deferring to someone, right? So very common sa atin yung hiya. And of course, we are extremely sensitive people when it comes to self-pride, self-esteem, and family and community pride, amor propio, right? The other factor is, as I said, we're sensitive as a nation, right? And then the fact is, Filipinos, we do not, it's a no-no for us to be rude. And rude for us is raising our voice, arguing, having conflict. So, and the last part is we have extreme high regard to elders. Elders can be also seniority or people of authority. The question is, Myla, why are you saying this to us? The point is, I would like you to we will come back into this one. This is our DNA. It is your DNA, my DNA, and the youth's DNA because ito yung sinasabi natin sa kanila araw-araw. We grew up here. This is something that we are taught about. This is something that we learn in the school. Where is the tension coming from? The tension comes from, as I said earlier, Gallup, which is an international body doing multiple number of researches worldwide, have rated Filipino as the most emotional country worldwide. And I repeat, our intensity and our emotions are always high. Please note that emotion doesn't construe to negativity, right? We are just highly intense people. Look at this number. These are the countries that are what we say the most emotional countries, with exception to very few. The common denominator here, our majority of them is almost where we came from in terms of cultural connection from Latin America. Countries like Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala. These are people whose culture is so tight, just like us, because of the Spanish rule. So when you take a look at it, this is the tension that comes from. We are highly emotional people. And when some of the values like this are compromised, when they are disrespected, when there are people who judge us because of this and because we have high emotional intensity, that's where the challenge comes from, right? Because we feel if you step on my friend, you step on as them as my part of my family. When you disrespect me in public, that is a no-no, and that is me losing my face and my family's reputation. That is where one of the things comes from. But the point is, when that touches our core, ano yung ginagawa natin? Here are just some examples of what we do. Some of us will probably retaliate because to us, that's our best defenses. Some of us will keep quiet, and quiet doesn't mean one part is suppressed, but the other part is we do our self-reflection. What did I do wrong, right? And most of us will form and say or stand, make an opinion. I am not saying that these are wrong or these are right. Where bullying comes in from is on these three areas. When we do this, when speaking up is something that we encourage. It is part of how we are able to articulate and verbalize how we feel. The problem would come in terms of if you face a situation, let's call the most popular situation we have today sometimes is, for example, that body shaming of some of the celebrities like Miss Angel Locsin, or the famous Kim Chu na bawal lumabas, right? Or maybe the more grave or more the degree of severity, such as the Ateneo bullying that happened in 2018 of a very young high school student and created a bit of a violence with another individual. So I want you to think about those occasions or occasions that you see online or offline. When you are faced with that situation, what do people do? I want you to take a look at the thought process. When I see that, the question we have to ask ourselves is there a value of me adding into the conversation? What am I adding in this conversation? If I will react, what will I say, right? The most important thing also is that when people are facing this situation, please remember, high emotional intensity tayo. The challenge is we form negative opinions, perceptions, and emotions. We are looking at the 20 seconds video. We have not seen the entire video and we are free to judge. We're only seeing a portion. When we make fun or name calling, we humiliate someone. When we spread a false information, we damage a reputation. When we actually instill or encourage violence, like papatayin kita pag nahanap kita, we are instilling harm, right? And most of the time, instead of radiating positiveness, we radiate fear, right? Kapag nakita kita, magtago ka na, right? So all of these things are negative reactions because that person chose that there is value to do something on a post or a video that he saw and form this negative opinion. The challenge also is what was or what is your intent? Why did you do that, right? So this is where the deeper part of bullying happens because your intent from the very start is to deliberately do harm to others, right? From day one, from our kindergarten to all the way to college, we've always been taught about the purpose of doing good to others, not the purpose of doing harm. Sadly, in this digital age, this is what we see. When you made the statement and you form the value that I can speak and I form negative thoughts and you have the intent to do harm, please note that there is two types of bullying harm, direct and relational. Relational is causing someone their status in the community, in the group, or in the small circle, right? And the last part is when all of this combine and you now have the appetite to share, to talk, because Filipinos are really very excessively talkative, right? And that's not bad. But the problem is with the presence of technology, it gave us the license to form that habit of sharing infinitely. And why did I say infinitely? Is because walang katapusan. Whatever you put here online will stay here forever. We always say that. So when you think about it, why is it happening? Is that when some of our cultural values are touched to the core, and when we react in this way that I've all mentioned, so where is it coming from? Is from persistent negative emotions that we formed, plus when we form a malicious intent to someone or to an organization, and we have the habit to proactively amplify it using technology or using face-to-face information sharing. My friends, that's where it's coming from, right? Doon nanggagaling yung bullying because of all of this area. So I'd like us to go back to this situation. You and I know this. This is a 2018 exercise. And we know Ateneo, it's known not just from being one of the best schools, but also it is run by Jesuits, right? It is founded by a lot of values, religious and cultural values. So when we see incidents, there is a big difference between saying that sasapakin kita versus doing it. So this situation really touches us to the core because most of the time, there are key players in the context of bullying. Most of us are normally would get magnetized. We will be empathizing with the victim. It is not wrong. We need to empathize with the victim. However, it is equally important that we have to empathize also with what we call the bully or the aggressor, because that individual needs the same amount of attention and care. So I'd like to emphasize that there are three players in this situation. When you look at the victim, bakit nagiging victim ang isang tao? Do they like it? Do they enjoy it? Is it their choice? Victim is driven by the behavior of a child or a youth or an individual because they have that intrinsic value in them to give in. Pagbigyan, ayaw umalma. To him, it takes a toll to complain. So that is the behavior of a particular victim. The other one is that it has formed a defensive posture. Offline, a defensive posture is tatalikod, lalayo, right? A defensive posture is hindi magsasalita, right? Or tatakbo. Those are defensive posture. Or when they say, akin na yung palaruan mo, they almost give in. Online, it is, how do you detect a defensive posture? Defensive posture is do nothing, right? Defensive posture is they will not engage, share, or do nothing, but they will not also complain. They will not tell anyone, right? So those are the behaviors of what we call our poor victim. It is not a choice, but because they don't have the intrinsic value to make them feel also superior, then they cannot take the fight by themselves. When you look at the behavior of a bully, the aggressor, right? They feel that when they do this, and remember this child, I don't know him, but this is not definitely the first time that he has done that. I will go back to our explanation. It's repeated pattern and behavior over time, right? So a bully and aggressor, usually if they are younger, until 7 years old, about 7 something, they would normally do what we call the shopping spree, right? Shopping spree means they would like to play around with many different victims until they want, normally on an age 8 onwards, they will single out that person because they know that they have proven that he's a wiki, right? A weak link. That is the behavior of when they choose a victim. Most of the time, they feel that the solution to their challenge is really to get, is effective, which means to hurt you, to damage you, and it's an effective way of channeling my emotion. Most of the aggressors requires, aspire, and look for dominance, meaning ako ang magaling, kami ang okay, kayo hindi. Remember that movie Mean Girls? That is what we call relational aggression. right? So it can be played by individual, it can be played by group, because you want to isolate someone as opposed to the other group. The most concerning part is that these individuals, they lack pro-social behavior. They do not see that what they did is hurtful. They do not feel any anxiety or passion or empathy when they do something, right? Again, it is not right, it is not wrong, but there is a problem that needs to be resolved. These are our key players on a cyberbullying perspective. My question to you, my friends, is that as adults, are we part of this? Are we part of the players, right? Are we part of this spectrum? Who are we actually playing in this situation? I ask myself that point, and by the way, another confession I have to make is that I don't have any social media account. And maybe one of the things that I don't have one is because I may not have the appetite when people say something bad against me, right? But when we look at a situation like this, so for example, you saw this in your eyes, what would you do? Whether it's a post that you've seen on Facebook or a news, what do you actually do? In this digital age and time, we as adults normally play three roles. Number one, we are a bystander. And a bystander to us means I ignore. A bystander sometimes to us means no, I will coach my kid about this. We will process this and say what is wrong with this one, right? A bystander also means that they will take action and rally people around them, okay? Sadly, unknowingly, we sometimes also play a victim and aggressor. When you play that role, sometimes it is not natural, or that's something that you're not conscious about. How do you do this? Number one is we sometimes play the aggressor online because we call this kid a name. Let's look at the Kim Chu or the Angel Luxin issue or any other issue. When we join the bandwagon and we share it, when we call them names, when we also exhibit negativity, we are becoming an aggressor, right? For that one occasion, not a bully, right? Because we are embracing that bad behavior, right? So my point, my friends, is that nagiging cycle siya to us. When someone does that to you, then another one will retaliate, right? So it becomes really a cycle. So the question is, after all that I have said is, remember I have three questions. Where is it stemming from? Which we know already is that when there is negativity and there's persistence and a malicious intent to do harm and the intent to share and proliferate it, who are the players, which means the victim, the aggressor, and us as bystander and adults. So the question is, what do we do, right? I think it is some area that we have to ask ourselves. To me, what do we do is in three areas. Number one is we have to convert education into action. We cannot be a silent bystander and allow this to eat our culture and to eat our community. Second, you and I, we need to break the cycle. We need to break the cycle of a victim, aggressor, and a stander. We need to make sure that people have very good digital citizen. And the third component is, do me a favor. If you feel that this session is something that you need to run in your community, whether it's 10 people, 100, I do care less, invite us. We'll be more than willing to share this and share our part. For me, those are the things that we have to really to do. And I will leave you with one question. One of the questions I ask myself is, are the bullies are actually born as bullies, or are they made? I always have the belief system that I'm sure you also have, that Filipinos and the human being are actually are innately good. We are innately good people. Criminals are not born, right? Bullies are not born. Victims are not born. They are made because they evolve. They are actually influenced by the environment that they play with. So if we will continue to be having this, if we cannot break the cycle, then we are actually living in a world that maybe in the next generation will be really aggressor more than what we call vanguards and good digital citizen. So that's my challenge to you. So I will turn over the conversation to answer the how. What are we going to do to break the cycle? Back to you, Alan.
Hello. Yes, thank you, Myla, for that very insightful presentation. And to answer that question, which is also equally important, we have another speaker who would be joining us. Carlito, I think you could share your slides now.
Hi everyone. Hello. Hi Alu.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Hi Myla. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that insights. I myself have really learned a lot from what you shared with us today. And coming from what you have mentioned earlier, I myself have experienced what you experienced before. When I was young, um, I was called by names, names that I thought were funny, but I don't know if for them were funny or were making fun. Or were just making fun at me. There was a time I was called Ampayatot, and then there was a time I was also called Apple, Mansanas, mukhang mansanas yung muka. I think my point here is that bullying has really been a long time, has really been there for a very long time, not just only at school, even at our homes or at the places where we thought we're comfortable already. And um, bullying is not just really doesn't really happen into a specific age group. It also does happen um, to adults. We are also get victims by it, and uh, bullies exist even before the time of cyber age. And because of the technological advancement that we are experiencing right now, no, they were given an avenue or a platform to step up and to attack a lot of people now on social media at the same time, and at the same time remaining anonymous. So before I proceed on sharing the house and the um, other ways that people attack um, um, the victims on social media, I will uh, let's have a quick exercise muna, no? I'll stop sharing my video now. I just really want to say hi to everyone. Thank you for participating this webinar. So let me just share my screen. Hold on. All right. There you go. Hope you guys can see my screen now.
Yes, now we can see them.
Okay. All right. So let's do a quick exercise muna, no? So I'm giving you guys seconds to participate in our first poll for this one. So I want to ask you, have you witnessed or experienced more unkindness on social media now that we are, in quarantine or during the time that we are all in this situation? So let's give people seconds to answer this poll. All right. I see a lot of people really answered yes. Well, I myself would also answer yes if I am asked the same question. No. So why am I asking this question to you guys? Since um, as I've mentioned earlier, since we're all confined to our homes for a long time now, and we don't know when our situation will end, um, there is really a big shift that has resulted in many of us flocking to online social spaces, and we really spend a lot of time. By the time we wake up in the morning and by the time we sleep at night, um, ang priority natin is to really check our accounts, our social media channels, to see if someone like our posts, who engage with our content, who react to our memes we shared, and so on and so forth. So, next slide. Yan. And the thing is, Philippines is very known for being a social media capital of the world. And that gives us um, a big responsibility of managing our social accounts. Because of the technological advancement that we are experiencing now, this has also led to significant changes in the way we behave online. And because we are exposed to this kind of advancement, it is really true that no one can underestimate the power of social media here in the Philippines because yun nga, tayo yung social media capital of the world. And in social media, everybody is interconnected. So information travels fast, unlike before where sending of information is, real time. So if you're familiar with the quote that I love, which is the pen is mightier than the sword. I used it back when I was high school, so it makes me sound smarter. So when for me, when one says this, no, we usually highlight the power of thoughts and ideas over force and violence as a way to effect change. But today, social media, because the pen has social media has invented our way of life anew. The pen can very well be a tap of a button that can para siya naging synonymous doon. Because the way we see things now or the way we react to things now is based on our behavior on social media. And despite using the platforms where we supposedly can shape our identities so we can project the best facets of ourselves online, the increase in internet accessibility has also brought a problem to us that deserves utmost attention and must be addressed immediately. And one of those problems that needs to be addressed is the cyberbullying. As mentioned nga ni Myla kanina, no, this is just very similar from the way the bullying we know. It's just that this move to the digital space, ika nga, and that's where the cyber word comes from. So before I proceed on my other stuff for today, I want to ask the room first. Have you ever came across with hashtag IZ for section F on your social media accounts? By any chance, no? When you were checking your Twitter or your Facebook, may pagkakataon ba na biglang sumagi ito sa timeline ninyo and you see na, oh, what's this? What's this IZ for section F? Well, if by any chance nangyari yun sa inyo, just comment, chat it in the chat box. So, for those who are not aware of this story, IZ is a senior high school student, if I'm not mistaken, in a university where what happened was she accidentally emailed the entire community of that university instead of sending the email to the school administrator only. So what happened was, uh, naging talk of the town si IZ just because of that mistake. Just because of that error where she was just asking kung pwede ba siyang malipat sa kabilang section instead sa section H if hindi ako nagkakamali, no? And from that moment, naging kilala ka agad si IZ. Kumbaga, naging trending siya sa Twitter, um, naging usapan siya sa iba't ibang universities, even sa mga, I don't know if this is a dating app or what, but ginawa siyang sample if you're really studying from this university, do you even know IZ? Parang ganon. And another post that really caught my attention was this comment where they described IZ as an irresponsible student just because she doesn't know how to properly email a school administrator. And it was mentioned that she even used an emoji. So yun, in a matter of sa in a matter of one click, no, one send ng email na yon, nagbago yung buhay ni IZ. In a span of hours, naging kilala siya ng mga tao. But the thing is, people didn't know na IZ wasn't really happy about what happened. A friend of her said that she doesn't really feel okay with what's happening. She felt embarrassed by it. She felt na she's too irresponsible. She doesn't want that kind of attention that she's getting to, and she doesn't want to be known for being like that. This is just an example of a cyberbullying that is very prevalent on social media. And her story isn't really ordinary. I'm pretty sure you've seen these memes of apparently isa pala siyang English teacher, the one you see at the bottom right of your screen. Um, she's being used as she's now one of the favorite memes of the Filipinos, and not only the ordinary citizens, no, who get to experience this kind of harassment, but even the celebrities. Syempre, sila public figures sila. They get to be more exposed with this kind of thing. And the thing is, sometimes when we do this kind of stuff, it may end up into to a worst possible case. Whereas, as you can see in my screen, one ended up uh, ended suicide. So a friend of hers said that the internet can really be a cruel, disgusting place. So at a very young age, she ended up her life. And there was also this movie based on from the cyberbullying that we see online. So where I am coming from, so it's easy for us to judge the people we haven't met and to share our opinions because we know that we are hiding behind our screens or um, laptops, right? So there's this term that they call the kuyog culture. If you're familiar with the term kuyog, kumbaga, ina-attack marami laban sa isa. And syempre, since you're hiding behind that screen, ano nga naman ba yung laban ng isang yon sa lahat ng umaatake sa kanya, di ba? So, this is the sad reality of what's happening in social media. And this is the sad reality of cyberbullying in the digital space. So, to have a better understanding on how cyberbullying happens on the platforms we are using, these are the common ways on how the attacks happen. Social media make it possible for online users to engage in cyberbullying as it is much easier to post and share content online, as well as quickly react to other online content. The usual nature of attack, based from the survey I found online, you know, people usually attack their reputation, their looks, their appearance, their opinions in a certain issue, and the object of attacks that they use, normally they manipulate the photos, they spread it online, they leak photos that should be private, that should have been private, and then they spread a lot of lies and rumors that are that are really not true because it's rumors. So, and the other threats that happen is that they tend to threat the life of these victims and even their family and even blackmail them. And here in the Philippines or um, in general, no, there are two types of bullies that we see on social media or in the digital space. And one that is being bullied by one person, and the other one that is being bullied by the group, which we also call the cyber mobs. So we have seen this form emerge in reaction to a troll, a video shared on the web, or a news item that is uh, shared publicly. And um, gaya nga ng sinabi ko kanina, this is just an example of what we call the kuyog culture. And sadly, hindi natin maiiwasan ang cyberbullying. Lalo na't alam naman nating karamihan sa kanila, or most of them are hiding behind their masks or the mask of anonymity. This gives them the power to attack or harass people on social media. So the anonymity on the internet really creates this equalizer opportunity, I would say, to empower anybody who had never been bullied in real life to assert themselves with such an aggressive act so that they could say something but not worry about repercussions cause they can stay anonymous. The anonymity makes it possible for someone who would not normally bully to say something online to anybody and everybody. And that's somehow what we call the imbalance of power. And it's kind of sad because one thing's out there already. The moment you post a video or a picture of yourself online, you really can't pull it back already. It's out of the internet for anybody and everybody who wants to get it or to see forward to share your content. So, I want to focus on these four things when it comes to the effects of cyberbullying in social media. So, four things. One, it can be extremely detrimental to your mental health. Cyberbullies don't really have much in the way of motives either. With bullying, there's normally an imbalance of power, but you don't need to be powerful to harass someone online. You just need the internet. Yan yung way nila. And by doing that, those harassers, by doing that to their victims, they don't know that they have already been attacking their physical health, their mental health, and so on and so forth. Hold on. So the other thing is, because of the cyberbullying that's happening on social media, no, one can really feel overwhelmed because you know what happened dun sa story that I shared earlier kay IZ. Imagine in a span of, let's say, an hour or two, ang dami nang nagme-message sa kanya and telling her na, oh, bakit ganito, bakit ganyan, and judging her already without her even knowing, just because of one simple mistake that she really didn't expect to happen naman. No, it really will make you feel overwhelmed. And because of you feeling overwhelmed, it may affect your performance. So, the moment that your performance gets affected, um, you will start questioning your self-worth, di ba? So these problems may bleed into our social lives as the victims encounter more trouble getting along with others. They started to experience trust issues and more likely to um, get into um, more abuse or yung mga bagay na hindi naman nila katulad ginagawa noon, may isipan nilang gawin ngayon. These are just some of the common effects that a victim experienced. So, there you go. The thing is, we really can control how others will treat us. You know, normally, what happened is uh, we will only respond. We can only control how we respond to these things. So we really have to manage ourselves instead of managing them. Because next time someone treats you poorly, try returning it with kindness instead. So that's something that I always put into my mind, so that you know, I myself have also experienced some bullying online, but I always tell myself this, so that I cannot control them. It's not in my hand. It's out of my control already. What I can do is to how I will respond to these comments against me and so on and so forth, because this will just remind them of their own shame, you know, and somehow will confuse the hell out of them, I'd say, or bounce off their forehead na I am ignored. So either way you win because you chose to be better, and that's a good thing, because as you go into your day to day, you know, anticipate, really have to anticipate the goodness in people, because most people naman are really good. It's just that at some point we are not aware then that we are already bullied, diba? So we are all born with kindness. So, but also know that there will be unpleasant people, and that it is not something to get ruffled over. So, uh, how should the digital space be used as a tool for addressing this bullying? Let's focus into four things. One, learn how to respect the others. Two, take actions. Three, be kind to yourself. And four, be prepared and accountable. So, what do I mean by these points? I'm pretty sure some of you here are familiar with this image, no, or of this meme, or have you seen this on your online. So I would like to ask you guys: is respect really given or earned? I think we have a poll here. Yan. A lot of people really answered earned. So I guess you guys are familiar with this clip, no? Sabi nga ni Bea, ang respeto hindi hinihingi, ina-earn yan. Well, I agree with her naman. You really have to earn someone's respect before you don't just simply demand it. You really have to prove or to show to someone that you really deserve that kind of respect. And why am I asking that question? Because number one, you have to learn to respect others, especially when you're using the social media. You have to remember that you have to treat others the way you want to be treated. I myself have always put in my mind na hindi ko ugaling mambastos, hindi ko ugaling mag-insulto online, because I know that will not reflect the person I'm attacking, but that will only reflect me. So let kindness always be your guide when you make your um, um, decisions on posting online. Let it be your guiding principle. Kumbaga na you're here not to you're using social media not to add flair pa sa lahat ng mga nangyayaring argumento online. So at the same time, you also have to pause before replying, sharing, or doing anything hastily. You always have to remember, like, you know, like what my mom always tells me, like before posting or before commenting into someone's post, you really have to think 100 times. You really have to think a lot of times before saying anything against that person, because you're attacking his you're attacking him, di ba? So another thing is take a breath, or walk away from the screen for a while before responding, so that you would know na kung tama nga ba, ito nga ba yung tamang pamamaraan ng makikipag-communicate sa taong kinakausap mo o hindi. And lastly, you have to remind yourself that whatever we post online are never truly private. Because once you, as mentioned earlier, once you posted something that is already shared to a lot of people, that is already seen to um, on different digital platforms. So it's up to you on what what stuff you will posting online or what you will be sharing. Second is you have to take actions. You always have to consider that we all have our different opinions when it comes to things. We don't have to agree with everything that we see, so you don't have to attack someone because this is what he believes in, what he doesn't believe into. So not everything needs to be an argument. So you really have to weigh which one. Um, you really have to pick your battle, kumbaga, so that you wouldn't get any attack as well. So there are also more interesting things to focus on. Sometimes um, it really paves way to unplug yourself on the platforms you are using and focus on the things that um, will help you to help yourself to grow, kumbaga. So I myself, for instance, I have been investing myself into different activities now while we are all confined to our homes, no? Since I don't want to spend most of my time on social media, sometimes you really have to take a break so that you um, don't get too pressured on what's happening online. And then you have to maximize the power of mute and silent button. This is something that I really added here because, use available tools to filter the trolls and control yourself. So if you really are tired of seeing um, um, some negativities online and you feel like you don't want to get bullied because you reacted into it, you all have an options, naman, to we all have our choices. And if you feel like you are being attacked,
you have an option also to report them. Facebook has an option where you can raise your concerns, and even the other platforms, Twitter, they have their support centers to address your concerns and support others who are being hurt. Say something kind and encourage them to ignore, block, or report. So third one is master the art of unplugging, like what I mentioned earlier. So you have to be kind to yourself by doing this and investing on some other activities that will help you grow further. And then your value is not equal to the number of likes, follows, or comments you receive. So don't feel bad if you get these numbers only from the materials that you post. Don't um, feel attacked or feel like no one's noticing you or whatnot. So you're more valuable than those stuff. And lastly, you have to be resilient. And then yeah, our fourth one for this one that we should always remember is to be prepared and accountable. So whenever you think of harassing someone or if it comes into your mind, man, no, always remember to put yourself in the position of that person. See if how you, what you will feel and ano yung uh, ano yung posible mong maramdaman kung sakaling ikaw yung nasa posisyon niya, kumbaga. Listen with the intent to understand, not with the intent to respond. Sometimes it really paves way to just listen to those people who are experiencing this kind of um, attacks online and help them to report or to um, help them to understand more kung ano nga ba yung problema nila or situation they are in. And then for our educators, don't forget to make students feel comfortable sharing with you because outside their homes, you are their parents. Kayo yung nagsisilbing magulang nila outside their homes. And even while we are already doing online learning, no, um, kayo pa rin yung nagsisilbing gabay nila when their parents are not around. So, I think this is gonna be my last slide naman. So, I think we're already over time, no? So, how do we help these people? As mentioned by Myla, we have the aggressors, and I also thought of adding the educators since a big chunk of our audience today are from this group, and lastly, our parents. So, the aggressors, sometimes you just need to talk to them. You have to make them really be aware that they're already harassing someone else because sometimes even these bullies aren't aware that they are already a bully. So help them understand the possible effects of what they are doing. And for the educators, let's develop a culture where students can open up and report actual cases of bullying. Like what I have mentioned earlier from the earlier slide. Uh, make them feel comfortable with you because you guys are their parents outside their homes. And you also have to involve the parents in developing a comprehensive, let's say, anti-cyberbullying program and reporting procedures so that you would know how to guide your students properly and to make sure that they are safe while doing online classes or while accessing their social media accounts. And for the parents, syempre, we really have to increase our online intelligence, especially now that we've transcended into a new digital age, diba? I'm thankful that I have parents who are very immersed to the use of digital because with that they would know, how to guide us properly and to tell us na what are our limitations should be, especially that we are all exposed to these platforms already, and use practical approaches to set up homes rules pertaining to internet and gadget use, and engage kids about gaming in social media. So now is the time that uh, to talk to your kids, especially that we spend most of our time naman at our homes. Eh, let's use this time to engage with them and to talk to them kung ano nga ba yung mga possible um, effects of um, too much gadget use and internet. And lastly, use online tools for digital parenting. There are a lot of online digital tools that can really help you when it comes to um, helping your children manage their um, social spaces. So use that advantage, since uh, those tools will really guide you.
Okay.
So when being cyberbullied, there are also practical ways to respond. But when the situation really calls for it, naman, don't hesitate to get professional or legal and uh, police assistance. So Facebook has their support center where you can check on um, your accounts. They also have their bullying prevention hub where they will teach you how to unfriend, block, and report, and the purpose of doing this. So they give you guidance on um, how this will help you to control your timeline, your feed, and the feed of your children. And some additional tips lang. So don't retaliate. Inform somebody when you're being bullied, because it really pays if someone's really listening, or if we really share our thoughts and instead of keeping it to ourselves. And lastly, should you experience these kinds of harassment, um, don't forget to document and save it. Trust me, it really helps to keeping all the receipts, kumbaga, because this will be used as a way para malaman if uh, you guys are covered by the Cybercrime Act that we have, and Anti-Bullying Act, or a so I think that's it. Just to really end this discussion for today, no, I would like to say that I am really a believer naman of free speech on social media, but at the same time, I am also an advocate of responsible and proactive use of the platforms. So in my world, personality and character-based attacks to destroy a message is something that should really be avoided, and something that should really not be considered, because nowadays not just specific age groups that's vulnerable to cyberbullying, but everyone, because that's the result of our wide use of social media. So it's up to you on whether you will choose to be a cyberbully or a cyber superhero. Thank you, Alu. So that's
All
actually
right. I think I choose to be a cyber superhero. Sinagot. Thank you very much, Carlito. I learned a lot, and and all our participants, I think, agree with me. They've been sending positive feedback about this topic, and also good feedback about the topic that Miss Myla also discussed. So we can now maybe answer one or two questions because we have already extended. So please be reminded that we will only be answering questions within the scope of our expertise. So Ms. Myla and Carlito, you could go ahead and answer some questions. So we have here some open questions in our Q&A.
Okay, so which one? I think we have to pick the one that has the most, no? So what
Yes.
I can see here, can I combine question 1 and 2? So the question is, what should we do if the parents of the bully, the aggressor, they do not cooperate in school, or in a parent teacher conference?
Mm,
So that's one. And then i-combine ko lang siya sa question number 2, which is, what do we do also when children or teenagers alike are very secretive? Do we have the right to really look into and access their online activity? And then how do we determine if they're actually experiencing bullying? Okay, so it's a
right.
two-pronged question. So the first one is, remember I mentioned kanina, there are 3 players to this situation: the aggressor, which is also their families, the victim and their families, and tayo. So if someone from the aggressor point of view, whether the victim or anyone close to him, are not responding, please do not correlate it to the mentality that they don't care. We cannot safely say that they don't respond, they don't engage means they don't care. No, it's not. Please remember that, number one, You are not in their shoes, right? You don't know how they feel. So do
Right.
not assume. Most of the time, they don't care because number one, they don't know what to do, right?
Mm.
Pangalawa, they don't have the tools like you and me, right? Or minsan, even that there is a parent-teacher meeting na, they do not attend, that doesn't mean that they don't care. Most of the time, it's hindi yun ang medium that they feel that they can really engage with the issue, right?
Mm.
So that's very important. Do not correlate it as they don't care. Pangalawa is that if they don't engage, there are still two important players that you need to put on your positive energy. Please spend your energy in helping them. The victim and also the other bigger community. What do you do, right? So yun yung pinaka-focus siguro. And then the second question that we have is, do you have the right to look at the online activity of your kids, go through his stuff, etc.? The big answer is, sabi nga ni Carlito, if you don't want them to do that to you, then don't do that to them, right? So it's a basic rule, a golden rule. So the point is, you don't have the right because that's what they call personal property or personal access. However, hindi yun nagre-restrict sa atin para malaman whether they are being bullied. I am with you. I want to understand whether they are going through that. So do it the other way around. Look for signs. Look for signs instead of diretso kayo sa computer at magtatrack kayo. What are the signs? Remember, there are two important signs that you can look at. Number one is physical symptoms. Ano yung mga physical symptoms? Remember, negativity or stress is manifested physically too. Lumalabas din siya. Like say, for example, repeated headache. Hindi sila makatulog. Insomnia. This also happens to kids, yung bedwetting, right? When they sleep, right? Or they have unexplainable injuries. For example, nakakita kayo ng mga cuts, scratches, things that are visible na wala, pasa, na wala dati, pero bakit nandun? Those are physical signs. The most important thing also is ano yung emotional signs, right? Rather than jumping to conclusion. Ito yung ayoko pong pumasok, right? Or masakit yung katawan ko, but you know that he always says that. Or change in their habits, right? Change in their eating habits, sleeping pattern, hindi sila nakatulog, or things like they avoid. You feel na ayaw makausap, ayaw nang sumama sa mall, right? So, or sadly, they have destructive behavior, which means they get into conflict, they argue a lot, they manifest anger, right? Emotional withdrawal. So look for those signs and please note, hindi dahil they exhibit it today means that they are bullied, diba? So it has to be a pattern. But the most important thing is that have a conversation, sit down, right? So that's, I guess, a little bit more important as well. Okay? Halu?
Right. Thank you. Those are very helpful tips. And I agree with you that we really need to be responsible in checking those symptoms or signs. That's all. Yes, that's all the time that we have for today for the Q&A. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Myla and Carlito, for this
Yep.
wonderful presentation. And thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
attending. Please take note that please just visit our Facebook sites, Trend Microcareers Philippines, and click right for our next webinar. That will be on July 23rd at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and the topic will be online education strategies. And then after this presentation, you will be routed to the survey. Please make sure to answer them. You could also take a snapshot of this QR code so to get through the link. Have a good day, everyone.
Stay safe, online and offline. Ingat.
Yes. Ingat po. Take care.